Welcome back, True Seeker. About to put the final touches on a book I've essentially been working on since the summer of 2013. It's been this entire experience the blog, videos, feedback, research, pretty much 5 years straight. And what I said in 2013 when I began this work is I felt like we had 5 years as a people left to speak out. And I said after that, I don't know. Because I saw back then, and for a decade before that, the cracking down on the First Amendment, the right to freedom of speech. If you were paying attention after 9/11, part of the Patriot Act was something called free speech zones. In certain cities, you could only speak out about what was going on in the world in certain areas that were designated for free speech, which were places that weren't that populated. And if you weren't following those rules, you could be arrested. And it does seem that that law has faded away. I don't know if it's still on the books, but they're not enforcing it and talking about it in the news like they were after September 11th. But we've seen all these revised Patriot Acts passed ever since. And in 2011, I think the end of 2011, we saw Barack Obama. He signed an updated piece of legislation that had been around since the 50s or 60s, post-World War II era. But he made a change in this big write-up that they always renew these presidents. You know, these bills of the past, the presidents just sign off on now and they don't make much buzz. He made an update in this document and it declared the United States of America an active battleground in the war on terrorism. And the thing is, the way our Constitution's set up is that in wartime, you can, you know, the government essentially has greater reach. You know, they have more room to violate civil liberties and people's personal rights. And that's where we live now, an active battleground in the war on terrorism. Since then, we've seen the creation of ISIS and all of ISIS domestic terrorism recruiting and domestic terrorism influence. And, upsurge in shootings in the community. And we've seen, or the community, the nation, all across communities. We've seen the militarization of police, armored vehicles all throughout the nation, small cities, big cities, police with a lot more hardware on their body, bigger weapons. All of this stuff going on. And in the time I've been doing this work, I've proven that the news is planned theater to steer on this police state agenda, that elections are rigged, that sports games are rigged, a whole lot of stuff that so many people are deceived by. And we've clearly shown who is responsible. And with regards to who's responsible for stealing our liberties, scaring us every day with their media, abusing us with their government, now censoring our right to free speech. With regards to those people, they're the ones who think we're animals. In their Talmud, it says that a non-Jew is an animal. And, I want to talk about this picture right here in light of what we're allowing to happen. The building of this police state, the taking away of liberties. Again, the people who do this, they see us as animals. And in their Talmud, it says they have the right to rule over us, lie to us, enslave us. The purpose of our existence is so that we can work and labor for them so they don't have to. And, this lion right here essentially represents we the people. And this person right here, with his hand on the back of the lion, he essentially represents the Talmud thumpers. The guy who controls your media, your government, your money, the things that control you. He's that. And he has total confidence that this lion, which he knows could destroy him, he knows the lion's not gonna, because the lion's been taught from a young age to obey the rules of the lion master. Be a good lion, you'll get your snacks throughout the day, you get your slabs of meat, and whatever else the lion desires at the end of the day that allows him to be ruled over. And That's exactly what we have. We have a populace that's ruled over by liars, tyrants, people who use and abuse them. Everyone in this nation is pretty much a working slave trying to keep up with the next bill, trying to keep up with taxes. All of us pay a ton in taxes on our labor, which was never supposed to happen in this nation, and which we allowed to happen. This lion right here, speaking of the metaphor, this lion looks pretty disappointed. And, you know, this is like us. We're becoming more disappointed with time. Once upon a time, the lion had it better. He got more meat each day. He got more leisure time, whatever the lion likes to do. You see, the change in society post World War II. Once upon a time, it was one parent at work, usually the man, and he made plenty to provide for the family, a retirement, education. He made enough money to take care of it all. The wife could stay home, help with the children, help with the house. One parent out there paying the bills. And that was the norm, There's always been poor, sexist society. And for them, it hasn't been the norm. That's part of our society too, class system, and it's designed that way. But still, once upon a time, there was a very large middle class where this was the truth. I mean, for most of us who have a grandparent, that's the story we knew. The grandfather worked, grandmother raised the children, and they all did well, or better than most people do now. Now, almost every family's two parents working, hardly home, have to have other people raise their children, can't keep up. The treadmill of life is sped up. And, there's more long faces in our society. And it's all because, we've lost our human instinct, or even our animal instinct, if you will. We've become the good caged animal, that just trusts in the master, no matter how the master treats us. These long faces in society, it's because we live not in tune with nature, The people who rule over us, they don't have us in tune with nature. They have us in tune with the slave system. It's not good for anybody. It's why so many children hate school, It's why so many people hate their job. Imagine if we overthrew the master and we lived like lions in the wild, like how we're supposed to live, Imagine if you lived in a world where you weren't raised by books that are said to be inspired by God and governments who say they're greater than you and must be obeyed. Imagine if you just grew up in the world, in a sensible world. You grew up in a community. The community didn't have all this technology. What it had was common sense. Take care of the land around you. Grow the food. Take care of the place you live. Know your community. Interact with your community. Have good, make good times, memories with your community. That's the way people used to live, Now what do people do? Most families are broken families. One parent raising the children. Most families don't even get along. It's all because we've allowed it to get to this place. Everyone's stressed out from work, doesn't have enough money. They're feeding us junk food that's not good for us. That's the other thing before the wars. People used to just have organic food. There wasn't genetically modified food. There was just organic food. And you got science out here telling you that there's nothing wrong with genetically modified food. It's the exact same. But is it true? All this rise in infant child illness, autism, disease, SIDS, all this stuff that didn't used to exist, peanut allergies. Where did it all come from? Science says we don't know where it came from. We just know it's not the genetically modified food. We're confident about that. It's not the genetically modified food, but we have no idea what's causing all the new illness. You guys, they know exactly what's causing the genetically modified illness. Why do you think every time, a person speaks out about autism and diet, that person is shamed in the media? That's why all the long faces, there's no truth in this world. We're all living a way we're not supposed to. Child's not supposed to be raised outside of its home, in the state school. Remember, Circle C for Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus discovered the land where the natives live. It was okay to kill the natives because that was fill in the blank. Did you write Manifest Destiny? That's the right answer. Good for you, Johnny. You get an A. You're on to first grade. You're on to second grade. You're on to third grade. You know, we have all these people that spend all these years in this state system away from their own family, getting taught by people they have no business teaching them anything. No, they pay teachers jack shit in this well-managed system because they want to recruit the dumbest. They want to recruit the dumbest to teach your children. Why? So they'll be dumb, you know? This is how the system works. That's why we all got the long faces like this lion. We're just letting this shit go on. You know, this lion, he could change his whole life by just bringing his left paw right over. Boom. And hit the gate. You know, but he's aware, he doesn't know what goes on outside the gate. He's never got to hunt in his life. He's never got to live under anything but tyranny and lies and, well, you know, what is that for the lion? Having to jump through the hoop of fire every day so he can get a slab of meat at the end of the night? Whatever it is. But he's never gotten to live outside the cage, just live the free man's life. You know, learn what it is to hunt. You know. That's what they do to us in the United States of America. They take away all the good things, stress everybody out, exhaust them. Why do you think they punish all young people with all this fear about sex? You know, fear, fear, fear. Why don't they educate young people how to be smart sexually? You know, they want these dumb young men, you know. Look, how many guys come in women because they don't know anything about sex, and then they have to rush out the next morning and spend like $60 after tax on Plan B, maybe even more in some states. I mean, how many young men are doing this every single day? If you work in a pharmacy, you know in the morning, a lot of young people come in to get that Plan B. Whoops, they got carried away last night. You know, if there was sexual education about like the signs that maybe you're about to come, then maybe the first time you did it, you know, you wouldn't end up coming in the woman and thinking, oh my God, I'm about to have a child as an 18-year-old. And we live in a society where people can't even talk about sex. They're just like so uncomfortable talking about sex when it's a normal human thing and pretty much everybody likes to do it unless they were abused as children, which also happens at an alarming rate. I used to work in a group home. You know, some people are traumatized with sex. And sometimes those people who get traumatized with sex, then they learn to use sex as a weapon at a young age. And that's a whole other conversation. But the thing is, like, almost all of these systemic problems, people raping their children and, you know, raping anybody, almost all of it is because of the way we treat sex in our society. We make it this taboo thing from a young age. People are scared of it. People don't want to talk about it. You know, some people, you know, it's just like, I don't know. They can't figure out how to get it because they've gotten all this toxic information about it. So then they end up doing crazy things, you know, becoming predators of children, vulnerable women. All of this is from the lion living in the cage its whole life. You know, we live in a metaphorical cage. Information. You have to believe this from a young age. You know, all this culture shit we're given. It's just pure insanity, you know? And from living in the cage our whole life, we just allow insanity to go on. Totally out of tune with nature, you know? The whole society's out of tune. And I guess we don't realize it because our whole lives have been out of tune. But just like looking at this picture in this lion's face, it's just like looking at society. Obese, lonely, depressed people. What's in the entertainment that people are addicted to. You know, just believing nonsense, going against human nature. You know, telling kids from a young age certain plants are just so horrible for you. Stay away from those plants that might open your mind, might help you see the truth. But here, eat all this junk food and crap and, you know, completely toxic diet that's advertised on television that your government totally sanctions and subsidizes.